All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're breaking down an absolutely incredible reboot. It's the story of how one person went from being, in his own words, the king of excuses to crushing a 42-kilometer marathon. So how in the world do you go from the couch to a finish line like that? Well, it all starts with a single, really uncomfortable truth.
Have you ever done that? I mean, really, we all have, right? You craft that perfect reason not to do something. Oh, it's too cold out. Man, I'm just too tired. I don't have the right shoes. The list goes on. And that is exactly where this story begins, with a mindset that was perfectly comfortable and completely stuck.
So, that very first step in this whole journey, it wasn't some triumphant leap off the sofa. Nope, it was more like a reluctant shuffle from the couch to the pavement. Okay, so picture this. The year is 2020. The whole world is hunkering down, and for a lot of us, the couch has become this fortress of comfort. But then, a simple nudge from his wife completely shatters that wall of excuses. It was a wake-up call that would end up triggering a total life reboot.
And let me tell you, that first step was not pretty. You can forget about those movie montages where the hero is instantly running in slow motion with epic music. This was a brutal battle for every single breath. His body was in what he called open rebellion. He was coughing, sputtering, totally humbled by just putting one foot in front of the other. It was a raw, painful, but you know what? A totally necessary start.
But here's the thing. Even with all that physical effort, he just hit a wall. Progress completely stalled. And that's when the real light bulb went off. The biggest obstacle he was facing, it wasn't his legs, and it wasn't his lungs. It was the 6 inches between his ears. To actually move forward, he had to find some serious mental fire.
And that mental fire, it came from a pretty unlikely source. Not some personal trainer, but the philosophy of this incredible endurance athlete, David Goggins. If you don't know Goggins, his entire message is about hardening your mind, learning to embrace the suck, and finding out what you're really capable of when you just tell that little voice in your head to shut up.
And this quote from Goggins, this was the absolute turning point. It hit home because it was a direct shot at that comfortable life on the couch. All of a sudden, the struggle of running wasn't just pain anymore. It was the actual path to finding his true potential. The whole purpose of running was totally reframed in his mind.
So with that, he got himself a personal mantra. Running wasn't a chore anymore. From then on, every single time he hit a wall, or felt that pain creeping in, or wanted to quit, he'd just ask himself one simple question. What would David do? And that question, it turned every obstacle into a test of will, a challenge to be conquered, not something to run away from.
Okay, so armed with this brand new mindset, the goals started to escalate. Big time. This wasn't just about doing a few laps around the block anymore. He decided to train for what seemed impossible, a full 42-kilometer marathon. This was the gauntlet, and it was going to demand a completely new level of commitment and, as you'd soon find out, the right kind of support.
And finding that right ally turned out to be so important. The first coach he tried was super rigid, even scolded him for running while sick, and demanded he cut out all other sports. It didn't feel right. But then he found Coach Jen from New Levels Coaching, and her approach was the complete opposite. It was balanced, it was reassuring, and it was built on this idea that a training plan has to actually fit into your life, not just erase it.
So with the right coach in his corner, the commitment got even deeper. This wasn't just about running more. It was about deconstructing the whole process. We're talking structured strength training, sacrificing other sports he loved like badminton to protect his knee, and even practicing how to eat those little energy gels while on the move. And oh yeah, it meant facing the infamous local hills over and over and over again.
And just to give you a real sense of the intensity here, take a look at this. This is week 9, the absolute peak of his training. A 10K progression run, recovery runs, almost an hour of strength training, and then the monster, a 32-kilometer long run. I mean, come on, this wasn't a hobby anymore. This was a massive, massive commitment of time and energy.
So, after months and months of grueling preparation, race day finally arrived, the Brighton Marathon. This was it, the ordeal. The ultimate test of everything he had built, both in his body and, maybe more importantly, in his mind. You know, the race itself was a classic tale of two halves. For the first 21 kilometers, everything was going exactly to plan. He was strategic, he was riding that wave of adrenaline, and he was staying ahead of the 4-hour pacers. But then came the second half, and the real battle began. His knees started aching, his legs began to cramp,
and just that brutal, deep exhaustion set in.
And then it happened. The moment that every single marathon runner dreads. At the 35-kilometer mark, with the finish line so agonizingly close, the 4-hour pacers, his big goal, just casually ran past him. The target he had trained so hard for was literally slipping away right before his eyes. Now this was the moment it all could have ended. His body was failing, his time goal was gone, but this is exactly where all that mental training kicked in. He thought about Goggins. He remembered that this pain, the pain he was feeling right then, was the real test. He knew he had to dig deep and find a whole new reason to keep fighting. And just like that, in that moment, the mission changed. That sub-4-hour time, it didn't matter anymore. The new goal, the only goal, was simply to finish, to cross that line no matter how much it hurt. The real victory was no longer about what was on the clock, it was about his own willpower. And he did it. Through all the pain, the cramping, the crushing disappointment of a missed time goal, he crossed that finish line. That single number you see right there? 1. One marathon, one challenge that once seemed completely impossible, now in the rearview mirror. It's an incredible testament to his resilience, and it's a victory that you just can't measure with a clock.
So after all that, what's the big takeaway? You see, that finish line wasn't really an ending. It was the climax of a total personal reboot. And the lessons he learned, they apply to so much more than just running.
You know, when you really boil it all down, this whole journey gives us a kind of 4-step blueprint for a reboot. First, you got to break free from all those excuses that keep you on the couch. Second, you have to reframe the challenge. See the struggle, not as a barrier, but as the very thing that helps you grow. That's that Goggins mindset. From there, it's all about consistency, that day in, day out grind that builds real momentum. And finally, you learn to push through that moment of peak resistance, because that's the final door you have to open to get to real transformation.
This became another one of those powerful mantras from the journey. It's such a great reminder that every bit of progress you make is just another reason to keep going, not to stop. It just perfectly sums up the spirit of perseverance that took him all the way from the couch to that finish line.
And that brings us right to the end. As you've seen, this whole thing was never really just about running. It's a roadmap for tackling any challenge that seems impossible. So the question we want to leave you with is this. What's your marathon? What's the excuse, the wall, or the discomfort that's holding you back right now?